So we used invite reminders, we engaged people from the database that we had from 2016, this is where GDPR is so important, to engage them and set that excitement level for the year ahead. And we used we used a new marketing approach that looked at integrated print, TV, radio, and social media. And with Electric Ireland and Think House and TBWA, we really succeeded in increasing our online registrations by over 50% to 126,500 people. And we were able to engage with them throughout that. But a number of insights were gleaned from two major pieces. One was the work that we did with Think House, and the other was a participant survey that we've done in 2015 and 2016 with participants of Darkness into Light. So we have over 13,000 people each year who engage in a full survey. And what we realized is we could be much bolder about the message that we give. Talking about suicide is very difficult. I'm conscious that I do it day in and day out. I'm conscious that some of you are very uncomfortable with the words that I use and would be very uncomfortable if I asked you to go out and share these messages. But what we did realize was people said it has to be said. It has to be shared. So we could be bolder in the messages that we do. And the key insight that we gleaned effectively is how we treat each other is a matter of life and death. It literally is a matter of life and death. What we allow people to say to you that we should intervene and correct, but don't, can have a negative impact. What we do say to you about your size, your weight, your shape, who you love, who you don't love, can have a negative impact. We have the ability to plant seeds in other people's minds that will rot and can lead them to the point of suicidal ideation. But while we have that power, we also have the power to ensure that we don't do that. We have the power to ensure that other people don't do that. And we need to accept that responsibility. So the key insight of how we treat each other as a matter of life and death allowed us to make a much bolder message. So despite all of the advances that we've made in mental health and suicide awareness, suicide is still an issue and it is still a stigma, shrouded in silence and secrecy. And sometimes it is treated like a contagious disease, that simply by uttering the word suicide, you can spread it and you can implant it in other people. And that's nonsense. And that scientifically we know it's nonsense. So driving the conversations around suicide is absolutely vital. Engaging people in the conversations is absolutely vital. Providing words and images that they can use that allow them to be bold or gentle in their messaging is absolutely vital. So Darkness into Light, we've realized, is an opportunity for hundreds of thousands of people to come out in solidarity with each other and against suicide. And we knew that we had the ability to take this Irish event and turn it into a global movement. We've grown now from 9 centres in 2015 to 15 in 2017. Turnover has increased from 5.2 million in 2014 to 9 million in 2017. And our income has increased from 5.4 million in 2014 to 10.3 million in 2017. And while the sentiment towards Darkness into Light was positive and the awareness of the event was slowly growing, to be a significant source of much needed funds, we needed a really compelling marketing and awareness campaign. So, as I've mentioned, we used TV, we used radio, we used social media. But one of the things that we also did was, we have about 5,000 volunteers across the world that run the committees that organise Darkness into Light. And they are embedded in committees in communities across the country and across the world. So we had other messaging campaigns that were much more subtle that we provided to them for church notices, for notice boards, for school magazines, for organisational magazines, for emails that they sent themselves. So equipping individuals to deliver our message in their own words is a very, very powerful way of engaging people. And one of the most significant insights for us is in 2015, our partners in the University of Limerick have done research into Darkness into Light and its impact on individuals. Specifically, the question was about how do you feel equipped to talk about suicide and how do you feel equipped to support somebody who might be in suicidal ideation. And what they found, without going into the science, is that by taking part in Darkness into Light, because of the engagement process, because of the experience of being part of a movement, and because of the communication that we have with them, people's resilience is massively increased because they can talk about suicide. They know details about suicide, and they know that we exist free because of their participation. So they know that how to deal with it and where the support is. So we know that by taking part in Darkness into Light, lives are saved. So tactics that we looked at, throughout 2015 and 16, we undertook a really concerted effort to turn this into a global movement. So obviously that means going outside of Ireland. And what we did was we engaged very closely with the GAA and the Rose of Tralee. Unlikely bedfellows, possibly not, I've been at the festival, but we engaged with them because they are Irish institutions abroad that are deeply ingrained in local communities, that are deeply connected to non-Irish people in those countries. So in one sense, we used the GAA and we used the Rose of Tralee as the injection site with which we could access wider communities across the globe. And that has been really, really good for us because they have ready-made structures and mechanisms. They have all health and safety advice. They are localized in that. So that has allowed us to grow, and that's DIL Sydney. One of the things that annoys me about Darkness into Light is I share the social media work, and you have no idea how irritating it is to be sitting in your own bed, hearing the pissing rain, lashing against your window, and watching these bastards with their big smiley faces on Bondi Beach in the roasting hot sun and thinking, whoa, I have a day ahead of me. But anyway, so we, in 2017 as well, we implemented a number of new initiatives to optimize revenue and to mobilize our advocacy base. And they included the new website with full mobile integration and payment options in multiple currencies. One of the interesting things that we have found, and one of the challenges, is we outgrow our technology every year. So Darkness into Light is this year, 2018, we'll have 180 venues across the globe. We're from Australia, New Zealand, the Emirates, Europe, United States, Canada, right across the world. So what we have is an event that takes place in multiple currencies and multiple languages. Technology doesn't exist to allow for that processing to make it easy. So year on year we have to keep changing our processes and changing our systems. The one that we are using this year we have found in Australia, it's very good, it's very small, very bespoke. We have individual web pages for every venue because one of the things, this isn't on my words but I keep saying it, I want Darkness into Light to be like Midnight Mass. Not in a religious sense, but because all of us here are aware of the concept of Midnight Mass. All of us are aware of the fact that this is a Mass, like any other Mass, but it's a bit more special. It's at night time. It's at a time when families come together. You know Christmas Day is the following day. The baby Jesus is brought into the church. It's a very special occasion, whether you're religious or not. You know what it is. The other beauty of Midnight Mass is it is exclusively yours. It's about your family and your community. It's a time when you go home and you see people you haven't seen from one year to the next. Darkness into Light needs to have that level of familiarity with it. It needs to have that ability to bring people together. It needs to have that ability that people want to engage in it and that it holds a special place for them. And just the other interesting thing with Midnight Mass is you can go to the Pro Cathedral in Dublin or you can go to a tiny wooden church in the middle of nowhere. It's the same Mass and it's the same experience. So while you can do Darkness into Light on Bondi Beach, you can also do it in Cahersiveen in the lashing rain, but with the same experience and the same importance and the same engagement. So that was an important one for us. We've directly communicated with 126,500 people with a staggeringly low unsubscribe rate of 0.4%. So that shows us that people want to talk about this and people want to engage in this process. We've accessed tens of millions of people on social media channels through our own Pieta House owned and managed channels, but also each of our venues have their own Instagram, Twitter and Facebook accounts. So providing them content to share the message has massively expanded that as well. On our own channels alone, we achieved 8.15 million impressions. Darkness into Light, hashtag DIL 2017, trended on 5 different dates across Ireland and globally on May 6th. Hashtag DIL Wake Up trended on 3 dates across Ireland and nationally at several points. Hashtag Darkness into Light, which is the one we don't want people using, but they all use anyway, trended on 3 dates across Ireland, the UK, and really interestingly, Vietnam. And Vietnam hosted an unofficial Darkness into Light. They will have an official one this year. But it's really interesting that they trended all day. Now, my understanding of geography is not good, but I'm sure it's not a tiny country. So for darkness into light to trend globally in Vietnam, I think is very significant.